be interesting for that time. So he was under the jurisdiction of Herod. So even though he tried to stay away from any encounter with him, it was destined to happen. And said that Herod was very happy, but look what look what Herod did. We see the true colors of Herod. My prayer, even with our leaders today, is that God would show us their heart, that we would really see who they are, not listen to what the news are saying, not listen. Give me a second. Noonday just came on, so give me 1 second, please. Let me share it. Okay. I've got Noonday shared on Facebook so that followers can see it on Facebook. But anyway, for those that are just joining us on Facebook, we are continuing our journey of Jesus' journey to the cross. And today we're actually looking at the preliminaries to the crucifixion of Jesus. So what we're seeing here, these are things that are happening before Jesus goes to the cross. And we talked about that Jesus on this day was facing 6 trials, and that's very unusual, in one day's time to be facing 6 trials. But Jesus had to face 6 trials on his way to the cross. And that 3 was political, 3 was religious. And we found that the ones that were political, that they never could find any charges against them. But the religious leaders had to come up with lies and with untruths because they had an agenda. And their agenda was to have Jesus killed because he was messing up their plans. Now, he was causing them, so many heartaches because people would listen to him and they would begin to follow, and one thing about Jesus, he never hid who he was. He spoke the truth. He shared the truth. He never hid himself. When you saw Jesus, you saw the Father. And that's the way that we should be. When people see us, they should see the Christ in us. We should be a light that this world needs to see. And again, and as we saw what happened yesterday with the shooting at the high school, this world is in dire need of seeing Christians that are willing to stand up and confess Jesus as their Lord and Savior. So again, for those who are tuning in, we are in Luke, the 23rd chapter, and we started at verse number 1. We are now in Luke, the 23rd chapter, and we are at verse number 8. And I just said that we just went, but let me repeat that. It says that now Herod was very glad when he saw Jesus, for he had wanted to see him for a long time because he had been hearing about him and was hoping to see some sign performed by him. So this is the 5th trial that Jesus is going through. Like I said, could you imagine going through that many trials, and being innocent, but yet still having to go through it because people, wanted to see you killed, but Jesus, though he went through it, he was going through all this, and he never said a word. Because he was totally about doing the Father's will. And that's what we have to be about. There is a cost of following Jesus. That's what it's a cost of discipleship. You're going to go through some things when you follow Jesus because people do not want to hear you talking about Jesus. People do not want to hear you talking about your God. People do not want to hear, that they're living, their lives wrong. They don't want to hear it. But we still have to tell the world about our Savior. We still have to be a witness that people will see the Christ in us and be willing to be persecuted and give glory to the Father. So, in number 9, he says, and he questioned him at some length, but he answered him nothing. Remember I said that, that even with Pilate, that Pilate would question him, and Jesus never said anything. Again, was a fulfillment of the prophecy. Now, this is where we get to see the real person of Herod. He says, and the chief priests and the scribes were standing there accusing him vehemently. The chief priests and the scribes, they were accusing him. They would not let it go. They had their agenda that they wanted Jesus to dead. Okay, so in 11, and Herod with his soldiers, after treating him with contempt and mocking him, dressed him in a gorgeous robe and sent him back to Pilate. So here's Herod that had been looking to see Jesus, wanted to see some miracles performed because he had heard about him. Now we see his true colors. He then began to treat Jesus with contempt. He with his soldiers, he began mocking him, and said that he dressed him in a gorgeous robe and sent him back to Pilate. Now, this verse 12 really stuck out to me. And we've seen it before. The Pharisees and Sadducees that they really can't stand each other, but yet they come together for this purpose. Now we see here in verse 12, it says that now Herod and Pilate became friends in one another that very day, for before they had been enemies with each other. Now, strange bedfellows, people that normally would not have anything to do with each other, but they come together, for this common cause. And this common cause, is having Jesus put to death. And thought that came across my mind as I was thinking about this. I was thinking about this election that we political election. I know that, again, Donald Trump, had nothing but harsh words to say about our governor, Brian Kemp. But now, him and Kemp are okay. Kemp is supporting him and helping him out. It's strange, that when people that don't like you, you don't like them, but then you can come together for a common cause. Satan has his way. Remember, his thing, he is very divisive. His job is to kill, steal, and destroy. And Satan is doing a good job of causing chaos in this world. Let's go over to Matthew, the 27th chapter. And before we get there, let's read what it says, because I want to read my notes after that. It says, this is Matthew, the 27th chapter, and it says, verse 27, and it says, then the soldiers of the governor, we just heard, that Herod, and that they mocked him, they put him on a robe, and they beat him. But Matthew 27 gives us a bigger picture of what's going on here. So it says, then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the praetorium and gathered the whole Roman cohort around him. So this was not a private thing that they did, but they made this a very open thing when they took him into the praetorium. It's like an auditorium, and it's like a gathering. So they took him there, and look what they did. Verse 28, they stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him, humiliated him. They stripped him, they took off all of his clothes, and they put a scarlet robe on him, signifying his kingship. And 29 says, and after twisting together a crown of thorns, they put it on his head and a reed in his right hand, and they knelt down before him and mocked him. Again, this is what they did to my Jesus. This is what, but he never, again, even here, he never said a mumbling word, people. He knew that for this cause that he came into the world, to die for you and I. Because we were sinners. We were lost, because of what happened in the garden. But here, Jesus, innocent. Now, can you just imagine that they doing this to an innocent person? What would they do to a guilty person? Now, we know that they had Barabbas, who was known to be a murderer, known to be an insurrectionist, but they would rather have a Barabbas who was guilty instead of having a Jesus that could save them from their sins. And our world today, that we're facing the same situation. There's nothing new